The smell of something unfamiliar hit me before I even unlocked the front door. It wasn't just perfume, it was arrogance, thick and nauseating. I paused for a second, the weight of the grocery bags in my hands forgotten. Something was off. The house was too quiet, eerily so, and the faint echoes of laughter drifted down the hallway like a slap to my face. "Ellie?" I called out, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. No response. I set the bags down on the kitchen counter, each rustling plastic a protest against the stillness. My footsteps were slow, deliberate, as I made my way down the hallway. A sick feeling churned in my gut. The bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. That was when I heard it, a low, muffled chuckle, and a soft gasp that wasn't mine to hear. My heart pounded as I approached the door. Every step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I kicked the door open, the force of it sending a loud crash through the house. Time froze. There she was, Ellie, my wife of 6 years, scrambling off a man young enough to have been in high school when we got married. Her face turned ashen as she yanked a blanket around her bare skin. The man, some smirking idiot with a gym rat's body, lounged there, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "It's not what you think." Ellie stammered, her voice shrill and desperate, as if sheer volume could drown the truth. I froze for a moment, my mind a kaleidoscope of shock, anger, and disbelief. My hand instinctively went to my drawer, the one where I kept my old service pistol. They both tensed when they saw it, eyes wide with panic. When I pulled the trigger, it clicked, a blank. The smirk on the lover's face widened, turning into a laugh that made my blood boil. "Looks like your cuckold shoots blanks," he said, mockery dripping from every word. Ellie laughed too, her voice mingling with his in cruel harmony. Something in me snapped. My vision turned red as I lunged forward. My fist connected with his jaw with a sickening crunch. He let out a yelp, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Punch after punch landed until his face was a mangled, bloody mess, his once arrogant grin obliterated. Ellie screamed, pulling at my arm, begging me to stop. But her cries only fueled the fire roaring in my chest. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Ellie's shrieks echoed in the room, but they were nothing more than background noise to the storm raging inside me. The young lover lay crumpled on the floor, moaning like a wounded animal, his once cocky attitude shattered into a pathetic whimper. Blood smeared across the hardwood like some grotesque painting. "You've lost your mind," Ellie yelled, yanking my arm with trembling hands. Her face was a blend of fear and anger, but not an ounce of guilt. Not a shred of remorse. She wrapped herself tighter in the blanket, shielding her exposed skin as though she were the victim here. I turned to her, my fists still clenched, my knuckles slick with blood. "Lost my mind?" I spat the words, my voice a low growl. "Ellie, you lost your soul the moment you brought him into my home. Our home." She took a step back, her eyes darting toward the door. "I don't owe you anything, Tom. You're always working, always distracted. What did you think would happen? I had needs." Her voice cracked on the last word, as though that justified it all. "Needs?" I laughed bitterly, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. "So you brought some boy toy into our bed? You couldn't even bother to hide it, could you? Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Her gaze hardened, the fear in her eyes giving way to a steely defiance. "Maybe I didn't care if you found out." That hit me harder than her betrayal. I stumbled back a step, the weight of her words sinking into my chest like a blade. My mind raced, but before I could speak, the limp figure on the floor groaned, breaking the tension. Ellie's eyes flicked to him, and for a moment, a flicker of concern crossed her face. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the bedroom, heading to the kitchen, my breathing ragged. I needed air, a moment to think, to process. But as I opened the fridge to grab a drink, I saw it, 2 wine glasses, one with lipstick smeared along the rim. I grabbed the glasses and hurled them into the sink, shattering them into shards. That's when I noticed the second phone on the counter. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Ellie's, either. It was newer, sleek, and unlocked. I swiped it open, and my heart sank as I scrolled through the messages. Pictures. Videos. Conversations. Her lover wasn't some random fling. He'd been here before. Many times. They joked about me, laughed at how oblivious I'd been. There were even messages about the last guy, someone I never even suspected. I clenched the phone so tightly I thought it might crack. A notification popped up on the screen. Another message. Is he gone yet? Can't wait to see you tonight, face blowing a kiss. I dropped the phone, staring at it like it was a snake. My rage reignited. She had another one lined up. Ellie hadn't just been cheating, she was running a whole sideshow, and I was the fool who paid for the circus. Before I could march back into the bedroom, Ellie appeared in the doorway, her blanket now replaced by a robe. Her expression shifted when she saw the phone in my hand. Where did you get that? She snapped, her voice sharp. I held it up, my lip curling. Your boy forgot his toy. Too busy disrespecting me in my own bed to grab his phone, huh? Her face went pale, but she quickly recovered, her expression twisting into annoyance. You're being dramatic. It's not what you think. I barked out a bitter laugh. Oh, really? Let me guess, you're tutoring him? Counseling him through his issues? What, Ellie? What could possibly explain this? She crossed her arms, her defiance returning. You want the truth? Fine. I'm not sorry. Not for any of it. I've been miserable, Tom. You're so busy being the perfect provider, the perfect man. I got tired of being your second priority. Second priority? I stepped closer, my voice rising. I busted my ass to give you this life, Ellie. Everything you've got, the house, the car, the vacations, that's because of me. And this is how you thank me? Her jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with anger. Maybe I didn't ask for all that. Maybe I just wanted someone who saw me, not a checklist. The room felt like it was spinning. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make her feel the pain she'd caused. Instead, I turned back to the phone, scrolling through the messages again. That's when I saw it, a thread with a contact labeled boss. The messages weren't romantic, they were transactional. Explicit photos of Ellie. Bank transfers. Meet-up locations. My blood turned to ice as I pieced it together. What the hell is this? I held the phone up, my hand trembling. Ellie's bravado faltered for a moment, but then she smirked. A cold, cruel smirk. You think your salary's been keeping us afloat? You're not as good at math as you think, Tom. Somebody had to pick up the slack. My stomach churned. This wasn't just betrayal, it was something far darker. Ellie wasn't just cheating. She was selling herself. And now, I had a choice to make, keep digging into this pit of lies or walk away forever. But I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. My cruel revenge was only just beginning. Ellie's words hung in the air, heavy and vile. I stared at her, my mind reeling from the revelation. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Her smirk lingered as if daring me to do something, anything. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, pacing the kitchen. You, what? Moonlighting as some kind of escort? And you thought I wouldn't find out? Her arms crossed, her posture as defiant as ever. It's not moonlighting, Tom. It's survival. You think your paycheck covers everything? The mortgage, the bills, the perfect life you like to brag about? You're delusional. I slammed my fist on the counter, the sound reverberating through the room. Don't you dare put this on me. I gave you everything, Ellie. And this is how you repay me? With lies? With strangers? In our bed? Her eyes narrowed, her face a mask of cold disdain. Oh, don't act so righteous, Tom. You were never here. You're married to your job, not me. I just filled the void you left. The rage bubbling inside me nearly boiled over, but something stopped me. A strange clarity. I couldn't let her dictate the narrative anymore. She thought she held the upper hand, thought I was just a broken man scrambling to understand her betrayal. But she underestimated me. I grabbed the phone again, scrolling back through the messages. Names, dates, numbers, they were all there. A record of her double life. I snapped photos of the evidence with my own phone, my heart pounding with a new resolve. Ellie watched me, her expression flickering with unease. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice tight. "Getting the truth," I said, not looking up. "You're not going to weasel your way out of this. Not this time." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "And what are you going to do, Tom? Run to the cops? Tell the neighbors? Oh, please. Who's going to believe the boring, clueless husband over me?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the door to the basement and headed down, ignoring her protests. My workshop was a mess of tools and projects I'd never finished, but there was one thing I knew I could rely on, the old security camera system I'd installed years ago. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. And judging by the timestamps on Ellie's lover's phone, it had probably captured plenty. I hooked up the system, my hands trembling as I rewound the footage. Hours of mundane household activity blurred by until, there. I stopped the playback, my stomach lurching as I watched Ellie usher her lover into the house. They were laughing, kissing, acting like this was their private sanctuary. My sanctuary. I fast-forwarded, catching glimpses of them in every corner of the house, my office, the living room, the kitchen. Every frame was a dagger to the chest. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I needed to see it all. When I emerged from the basement, Ellie was standing by the sink, pouring herself a glass of wine as if it were just another Tuesday night. She didn't even look up. "Are you done playing detective?" she asked, taking a sip. "Maybe you should focus on why I had to find happiness elsewhere." I ignored her, my mind racing with a new plan. The evidence I'd gathered wasn't just for me, it was leverage. Ellie thought she held all the cards, but I was about to flip the table. "You know," I began, leaning against the counter, "I've been thinking. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been too focused on work." She blinked, caught off guard by the change in my tone. "What are you talking about?" "Maybe I've been blind to what's really important," I continued, my voice calm, measured. "But now I see everything clearly. And I mean everything." Her face darkened. "What do you mean?" I smiled, pulling out my phone and tapping the screen. A video began to play, the footage from the cameras. Her lover's smug face filled the frame, followed by Ellie's unmistakable figure. The audio was clear enough to catch their laughter, their casual insults about me. Ellie's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. How did you? Like I said, I interrupted, my voice cold, "I see everything. And now, so will anyone else I decide to share this with." Her bravado crumbled in an instant. She reached out, her voice trembling. "Tom, wait. Let's talk about this. You don't want to ruin both our lives, do you?" "Oh, I think you've done plenty of ruining already," I snapped. "But don't worry. I'm not going to the cops. Not yet, anyway. First, we're going to set a few things straight." Her eyes darted toward the front door, her fight-or-flight instinct kicking in. But I wasn't about to let her run. I stepped closer, my voice low and deadly. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to pack your things and leave. Tonight. I'll deal with the divorce papers later. And if I hear so much as a whisper of you trying to play the victim, this footage goes to everyone, your friends, your family, even your precious boss. Ellie's face twisted with fury, but she knew she was cornered. You can't do this, she hissed. You don't have the guts. I leaned in, my eyes locked on hers. Try me. She stood there for a moment, trembling with rage and fear, before turning and storming out of the room. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of drawers slamming as she packed. But I didn't feel relief. Not yet. This was far from over. Ellie might be leaving, but I knew her well enough to expect retaliation. And I was ready for whatever she threw at me next. Ellie stormed upstairs, each stomp of her feet reverberating through the house like a drumbeat of defiance. I followed her, leaning on the banister, watching her as she tore through drawers, yanking clothes off hangers, and throwing them into a suitcase with wild, chaotic energy. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. If anything, she radiated fury, a caged predator ready to strike. You think this is over, she snapped, her back to me. You think you've won? Not a game, Ellie, I replied, my voice calm but laced with steel. This is my life you destroyed. If anything, you've lost. She turned to face me, her hands trembling. Oh, please. You're not some innocent victim, Tom. You've ignored me for years. You locked me in this house, buried me under your expectations. If I burned it all down, maybe you should have seen the match in my hand. Her venomous words should have hurt, but they didn't. They only confirmed what I already knew. Ellie had no remorse. No shame. She was already planning her next move, and I wasn't about to let her get the upper hand. I'd tread carefully if I were you, I said, stepping into the room. I've got enough evidence to bury you. You walk out of here quietly, I might just let you keep some dignity. Push me, and I'll show the world exactly who you are. She scoffed, slamming her suitcase shut. You think you're so clever. So righteous. But you're not the only one who can play this game. My stomach twisted at her tone, but I didn't let it show. What are you talking about? She smirked, that cold, calculating glint returning to her eyes. You think I've been careless? That I haven't covered my tracks? You're not the only one with recordings, Tom. I've got months' worth of videos of you, ranting, drunk, talking about things that wouldn't look so great to your precious colleagues. That's bullsh. She cut me off. Oh, really? What about last Christmas, when you blew up at me over dinner because I forgot to pick up the wine? Or that time you told your boss to shove his job in front of me? You think a little creative editing won't make you look like an abusive, unstable lunatic? I froze, a wave of unease washing over me. Ellie was a liar, but she was also cunning, and I couldn't dismiss the possibility that she'd been quietly collecting ammo of her own. She must have seen the flicker of doubt cross my face, because her smirk widened. See? You're not so untouchable after all, she said, snapping her suitcase shut. Now, why don't we both just walk away before this gets uglier than it already is? I clenched my fists, fury bubbling beneath my calm facade. She thought she had me cornered, but I wasn't about to fold. I don't care what you've got, I said, stepping closer. You think your little videos can save you? Go ahead and release them. But you and I both know who'll come out looking worse when the full truth comes out. You think people won't ask questions? About your finances, your meetings, your lover boys. Don't underestimate me, Ellie. I'm not as naive as you think. Her smirk faltered for the briefest moment, but she recovered quickly, brushing past me with her suitcase in tow. Enjoy your little victory, Tom. You'll regret this. As she descended the stairs, I followed at a safe distance, watching her every move. She grabbed her keys from the counter, threw a final glare my way, and slammed the door behind her. I exhaled, the silence she left behind both a relief and a burden. For the first time in hours, I was alone. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pored over everything, her texts, the security footage, even bank statements I hadn't thought to check before. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her betrayal went. She hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd been siphoning money out of our accounts, using it to fund her double life. Expensive hotels, lavish dinners, designer clothes, all for men who weren't me. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was an embezzlement of our marriage, our trust, and every ounce of faith I'd put in her. By morning, I had a plan. Ellie thought she'd scared me, but she'd underestimated just how methodical I could be. I made calls, to my lawyer, to my bank, and even to a private investigator. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one. Around noon, just as I was reviewing the evidence with my lawyer, there was a knock at the door. I opened it cautiously, half expecting Ellie to return with some new stunt. Instead, I found a young woman standing there, her expression nervous. "Can I help you?" I asked, confused. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, glancing around as if she didn't want to be seen. "I'm looking for Ellie." "She's not here," I replied coldly. "Why?" The woman hesitated, then lowered her voice. I think she might have scammed me." My heart skipped a beat. "Scammed you? How?" She promised me work. Said she could help me, make some extra money. But all she did was take my deposit and disappear. A chill ran down my spine. Deposit? For what? The woman looked down, ashamed. She said she'd set me up with clients. I thought it was legit at first, but, she trailed off, tears welling in her eyes. Ellie wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just selling herself. She was running some kind of twisted scheme, preying on desperate people. My stomach churned at the realization, but my resolve hardened. "Thank you for coming forward," I said, giving her my lawyer's card. "We're going to put a stop to this." The woman nodded, relief and gratitude flashing in her eyes. As she walked away, I closed the door, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Ellie had been building a house of cards, and now it was all coming down. But I wasn't just going to let it collapse. I was going to make sure she was buried in the rubble. This was no longer about revenge. As the door clicked shut behind the young woman, a bitter mix of anger and determination coursed through my veins. Ellie's betrayal wasn't just personal anymore, it was a grotesque enterprise. She wasn't just tearing apart our lives, she was wrecking others, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. I needed to act swiftly. I sat down at my laptop and compiled everything, the footage, the text messages, the financial records, and now the testimony from Ellie's victim. Each piece painted a damning picture of her web of lies. But something gnawed at me, this couldn't have been a solo operation. Ellie might have been cunning, but this kind of deceit took planning, connections, and resources. She had to have help. My phone buzzed on the counter. A new email. The sender's name was unfamiliar, Ava Carter, but the subject line sent a jolt through my chest, "You don't know the half of it." My finger hovered over the screen for a moment before I tapped it open. From Ava Carter. Subject: "You don't know the half of it." "Hi, Tom. You don't know me, but I know Ellie. We used to work together, if you can call what she does, work. I've been in her inner circle, and I've seen how far she's willing to go. I thought you should know what you're really dealing with. Ellie's not just running her scams for herself. She's part of something bigger. A group. They call it the network. They recruit people, women, mostly, to exploit men like you, siphoning money, selling access, and when they're done, they move on. I got out when I realized how twisted it was. But Ellie? She's one of their stars. I'm attaching some things you might find useful. Do what you want with them, but be careful. These people don't play fair. Attached were several documents, spreadsheets, photos, emails, evidence that Ellie wasn't just moonlighting as an escort or skimming our accounts. She was a key player in an organized syndicate. My blood turned to ice as I scrolled through the photos, Ellie at expensive dinners with men I didn't recognize, laughing, drinking, exchanging envelopes. There were contracts, bank transfers, even a few candid photos of Ellie meeting with a man in a sleek black suit, a man Ava had labeled as the handler. I closed the laptop, my pulse hammering. Ellie wasn't just reckless, she was dangerous. And now, she'd put a target on my back, knowingly or not. I didn't have time to think about what to do next. My phone rang, the number unlisted. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Hello? I said, my voice guarded. Tom, it's Greg. Greg was an old buddy from my military days. We'd served together, and he now worked private security for high-profile clients. We hadn't spoken in years, but hearing his voice brought a surge of familiarity, and dread. Greg? What's going on? I got a call from someone asking about you, he said, his tone clipped. A man, wouldn't give his name. Said he was a mutual acquaintance of your wife's. He wanted to know if you were resourceful. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Resourceful? What did he mean by that? He wasn't exactly subtle, Greg continued. He asked if you had friends who could handle delicate situations. Sounded like he was fishing to see if you'd retaliate. I told him to get lost, but I thought you should know. My jaw tightened. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't just calling to chat. He was probing, testing to see if I'd become a problem. Thanks, Greg. I owe you one. Be careful, Tom. This doesn't smell right. Call me if you need backup. I hung up, my mind racing. Ellie had ties to something far more dangerous than I'd anticipated. This wasn't just a personal vendetta anymore, it was survival. Around midnight, as I sifted through more of Ava's evidence, I heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Headlights cut through the blinds, and moments later, the front door creaked open. Tom? Ellie's voice called out, cautious, unsure. I stepped out of the office, my heart pounding. She stood in the doorway, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. She looked nothing like the defiant woman who'd stormed out hours earlier. Came back for more lies? I asked, crossing my arms. She hesitated, then stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. I came to talk. I barked a laugh. Now you want to talk? After everything? Her gaze darted around the room, her hands trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I swear, Tom. It got out of control. Out of control? I took a step closer. Ellie, you're part of a criminal syndicate. You've been stealing from me, scamming strangers, and now I'm supposed to believe you're just sorry? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen her fake remorse before. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. They forced me into it. Don't give me that crap, I snapped, pointing to the duffel bag. What's in there, Ellie? More money? Evidence? Or were you planning to disappear for good? Her face crumpled, and she dropped the bag on the floor. Tom, you don't understand. If I don't do what they say, they'll come after me. After you. They don't leave loose ends. I froze, her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. It wasn't just about her survival. It was about mine, too. They know everything about you, she continued, her voice shaking. Your job, your friends, your past. They'll ruin you if you fight back. A cold silence settled between us as the weight of her words sank in. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about justice or revenge. It was about staying alive, and taking them down before they could destroy us both. But as I stared at Ellie, I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't trust her. Ellie's trembling form stood in the dim light of the living room, her words hanging like a noose. They'll come after you. The irony of her sudden concern didn't escape me. This wasn't the remorse of a wife caught in betrayal, it was the desperation of a woman realizing she was in over her head. I studied her, trying to sift through the layers of lies for a hint of truth. Her eyes darted nervously, her hands clenched into fists. Was she afraid of them, or of me? What's in the bag, Ellie? I asked, my voice low and cold. She hesitated, then bent down and unzipped it. The duffel's contents spilled out: cash, a burner phone, a passport, and a pistol. My heart thudded as I stared at the gun, the sheen of the barrel glinting under the light. You were planning to run, I said, my tone more accusation than observation. Her head snapped up, defiance flashing across her face. I was trying to protect myself. I know you think I'm some kind of monster, but you don't know these people. They don't just let you walk away. I picked up the burner phone, scrolling through its contents. Most of the messages were cryptic: times, locations, vague instructions. But one thread caught my attention: a series of exchanges with a contact named Handler. The most recent message chilled me to the bone. He knows. Handle it. I held up the phone. Care to explain this? Ellie's face drained of color. I didn't ask for that, she stammered. They must think I'll. Think you'll what? Take me out to save your own skin? I threw the phone onto the couch, the anger boiling inside me barely contained. Ellie, I swear to God, if you're playing me right now. I'm not, she cried, stepping closer. Tom, please, you have to believe me. They don't just want me gone. They want you gone, too. You're a liability now. The only way out is if we work together. Her words stirred a bitter laugh from my throat. Work together? After everything you've done, you think I'd trust you? You don't have a choice, she shot back. You think you can take them on alone? They've been watching us for months, maybe longer. They know your routines, your weaknesses. You fight them, and they'll destroy you. I stared at her, my mind racing. She was probably right, about them, at least. But trusting her felt like putting a loaded gun to my own head. Yet as much as I hated her, I hated the idea of being a passive target even more. I grabbed the duffel bag and dumped the cash on the table. Here's how this is going to work, I said, my voice steady. You're going to tell me everything. Names, locations, how this network operates. You're going to lay it all out, and I'll decide what to do with it. And if I don't? She asked, her tone sharp but laced with fear. I stepped closer, towering over her. If you don't, I'll let your handler know you've already turned on them. See how long you last. Her defiance crumbled, and she sank into the couch, her shoulders slumping. Fine, she muttered. But you need to understand, this isn't just some small-time operation. These people have power, money, connections. If we screw this up, we're dead. Then don't screw it up, I replied, sitting across from her. Start talking. For the next hour, Ellie spilled secrets that made my skin crawl. The network wasn't just a group of escorts and grifters. It was a multi-layered operation involving blackmail, money laundering, and even human trafficking. Ellie wasn't at the top, but she wasn't at the bottom either. She knew enough to make herself dangerous, and enough to make herself a target. By the time she finished, I had the framework of a plan. It wasn't foolproof, and it relied heavily on Ellie not stabbing me in the back, but it was the best option we had. I called Greg, my old military buddy, and gave him a brief rundown. He didn't ask questions, just told me to send the details and sit tight. We're going to use their own playbook, I told Ellie. Lure them into a meeting, make them think you're still loyal. Then we get what we need to take them down. Her eyes widened. You're insane. They'll kill us. Not if we outsmart them, I said, pulling out the pistol from her bag. And if they try? We'll be ready. Over the next 2 days, we set the trap. Using Ellie's burner phone, we messaged the handler, claiming she had the situation under control and wanted to meet to discuss next steps. The response was quick, a time, a location, and a warning to come alone. Greg arrived the morning of the meeting, armed and ready. You sure about this? He asked, his gaze flicking between me and Ellie. No, I admitted. But it's the only shot we've got. The meeting point was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the kind of place you'd see in a bad crime movie. Ellie and I arrived first, Greg hidden in the shadows with a sniper rifle trained on the entrance. My heart pounded as we waited, the tension thick enough to choke on. A black SUV pulled up minutes later. 2 men got out, one in a tailored suit, the other built like a linebacker. The suited man, undoubtedly the handler, approached with a chilling calm. Ellie, he said, his voice smooth. I see you brought your husband. Bold move. Ellie swallowed hard, her hand brushing against mine for reassurance. I thought it was time we all got on the same page. The handler smiled, but his eyes were cold. Is that so? In a flash, he pulled a gun, aiming it directly at my chest. My instincts kicked in, and I lunged forward, slamming his arm away as the shot went off, the bullet ricocheting into the wall. Chaos erupted. Greg fired, taking down the linebacker, while Ellie scrambled for cover. I wrestled the handler to the ground, adrenaline surging as we fought. His strength surprised me, but years of military training gave me the edge. With a final surge, I disarmed him and pinned him, the barrel of his own gun pressed to his temple. It's over, I snarled. You're done. He laughed, blood dripping from his lip. You think this ends with me? You have no idea what you've started. Maybe not, I said, pulling out my phone and snapping a photo of his beaten face. But I'll make damn sure the world knows who you are. We left the warehouse that night battered but alive. The handler was in custody, thanks to Greg's connections, and the evidence Ellie provided was enough to cripple the network's operations, for now. Ellie disappeared after that, leaving me a single note, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know if she was running or starting over, and I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt free. As I stood in my quiet house, I realized something. Betrayal doesn't have to break you. Sometimes, it sharpens you into something stronger. Something unbreakable. The quiet of the house after Ellie left wasn't peace, it was the calm before a storm. I thought her note meant she was done, but Ellie was never one to walk away without leaving chaos in her wake. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The text was short, but it sent chills down my spine. You thought this was over? Guess again. Attached was a video, a grainy clip of me in the warehouse, pinning the handler to the ground. In the background, Greg's rifle cracked, taking down the linebacker. The footage had no context, but the violent imagery was enough to paint me as a vigilante, or worse. The message was clear, someone in the network was still out there, and they wanted to frame me for their mess. The knock on my door the next morning wasn't a friendly one. 2 officers stood on my porch, their expressions neutral but their presence intimidating. Tom Grayson, the lead officer asked. Yes, I replied cautiously. We need to ask you a few questions about an incident at an abandoned warehouse 2 nights ago. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. What incident? The officer's gaze sharpened. We received an anonymous tip about a violent altercation involving you and several individuals. Care to explain? This was it. The network was playing their hand, trying to spin the narrative before I could expose them. I knew I couldn't lie, cops always smelled fear. But I wasn't about to incriminate myself either. I'll answer your questions, I said carefully, but I think I'd better call my lawyer first. The officers exchanged a glance but didn't push. After making the call, I was escorted to the station. As I sat in the interrogation room, waiting for my lawyer to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about revenge. The network was sending a message: no one gets out clean. Hours later, I walked out of the station with my lawyer, exhausted but uncharged. The cops didn't have enough to hold me, not yet. As I stepped into the parking lot, a familiar figure leaned against my car. Ava Carter. I told you they don't play fair, she said, her arms crossed. You didn't listen. I glared at her. What are you doing here? Helping you, she replied. Or at least trying to. That video wasn't just a scare tactic. They're setting you up to take the fall for everything. How do you know that? I asked, my skepticism clear. Because they tried the same thing with me before I got out, she said, her voice steady but tinged with bitterness. You're not the first scapegoat they've chosen, but you might be the last if we act fast. I studied her for a moment. She seemed genuine, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Why should I believe you? Because if they take you down, they'll come after me next, she said simply. I know too much. And so do you. Back at my house, Ava laid out her plan. The network thrived on control, of its members, its victims, and its narrative. To bring them down, we'd have to disrupt that control, expose them publicly, and leave no room for spin. They'll try to silence us before we can do anything, I pointed out. How do we get ahead of them? We go nuclear, Ava said, pulling out a flash drive. This has everything: names, accounts, transactions. It's not just Ellie and the handler. This implicates people you'd never expect: politicians, CEOs, even law enforcement. My stomach churned. Where did you get this? I had a backup, she said, smirking faintly. Insurance in case they ever came for me. You've been sitting on this the whole time? I asked, anger rising. Why not use it before now? Because the second this goes public, they'll know it came from me. I wasn't ready to die, she said bluntly. But now? We're out of options. Her plan was simple but risky. We'd send the data to every major news outlet, flood social media, and turn the network's secrecy into its downfall. But there was one catch: we'd have to do it from the inside. The data was encrypted, and only the handler had the key. His arrest wouldn't stop him from keeping the secrets locked away. That means we have to go back to the source, I said grimly. We have to confront him again. Greg agreed to help one last time. Using Ava's contacts, we learned the handler was being held at a private detention facility, a shady arrangement likely funded by his allies in the network. Breaking in wasn't an option, but Greg had a plan to force him into the open. The night of the operation, we staged an accident near the facility, a controlled explosion that drew out security and created enough chaos for us to intercept the handler's transfer vehicle. It was risky, reckless, and had about 100 ways to fail. But it worked. The handler's car screeched to a halt as Greg and I blocked the road. Before his guards could react, Greg had them disarmed, and I yanked the handler out of the back seat, shoving him against the car. You think this changes anything? He sneered, blood trickling from his nose. You're already dead men. Maybe, I said, holding up Ava's flash drive. But if you don't unlock this, you'll be the first to go down. Your friends won't protect you when this goes public." His smirk faltered. "You don't have the guts. Try me." He stared at me for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, with a curse, he relented. He rattled off the key, and I entered it into my laptop. The files decrypted instantly, revealing a treasure trove of evidence. Within hours, the data was live. News outlets picked it up, social media exploded, and the network's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. Arrests were made, accounts were frozen, and the names of powerful figures were dragged into the light. Ellie's name was among them, though she'd vanished without a trace. Part of me wondered if she'd resurfaced someday, but I wasn't waiting for that moment. I was done looking back. As I stood on my porch, watching the sunrise after a sleepless night, Ava joined me, a faint smile on her face. "You did it," she said. "We did it," I corrected. The network was shattered, but the scars it left behind were deep. Betrayal had nearly broken me, but in the end, it forged something stronger, a resolve to fight, to survive, and to rebuild. The days following the network's collapse felt surreal. The media frenzy was relentless, with new revelations emerging every hour. Names of the powerful and untouchable splashed across headlines, their crimes laid bare for the world to see. Ava disappeared into the crowd, her job done, leaving behind only a single text. "Stay sharp. There's always someone watching." Despite the victories, I couldn't shake the lingering unease. Ellie's absence was a shadow over my newfound freedom. The note she'd left still felt like unfinished business, a loose thread in an otherwise tightly woven tapestry of revenge and justice. 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, no stamps, just my name scrawled in Ellie's unmistakable handwriting. My heart sank as I opened it, expecting some veiled threat or bitter goodbye. Instead, it held a single piece of paper and a USB drive. The note read, "Tom, this is my last gift. Use it wisely. Don't try to find me." Against my better judgment, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Files opened automatically, revealing video clips, documents, and one last name, someone so high-profile that even the handler's network had barely touched them. A senator. One whose public persona was a blend of family values and ruthless ambition. But the evidence painted a darker picture: corruption, trafficking, and the orchestration of the entire network's operations. Ellie hadn't just run, she'd taken the ultimate insurance policy with her. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the files. This wasn't just evidence, it was a bomb waiting to go off. And now, she'd handed me the detonator. The question of what to do gnawed at me for days. The senator's exposure would ripple through the system, taking down not just the remnants of the network but countless others complicit in its schemes. It would mean justice, yes, but also chaos, and possibly more bloodshed. And Ellie's warning felt ominously true: whoever sent that envelope was watching, waiting to see what I'd do next. Greg was the only person I trusted with the information. When I showed him the files, he sat in silence for a long time before speaking. "This could bring the whole house down," he said. "But you know what happens when you kick a hornet's nest." "I'm not afraid of them anymore," I replied. "It's not about fear," Greg said, his voice grave. "It's about how far you're willing to go." That night, I made my decision. I leaked the files anonymously, ensuring they landed in the hands of journalists and independent investigators who couldn't be bought or intimidated. Within days, the story exploded, igniting a firestorm of public outrage. The senator's office released panicked denials, but the evidence was overwhelming. Arrests followed swiftly, with more names revealed each day. I knew there would be consequences. Men like that senator didn't fall quietly, and their allies wouldn't stop until they uncovered the source of the leak. I took precautions, moved to a small town, cut off contact with nearly everyone, and changed my routine constantly. Greg helped me disappear, his military expertise invaluable in covering my tracks. But I didn't run out of fear. I ran because I wanted something more than survival, I wanted peace. Months turned into a year. The world moved on, but echoes of the network's downfall still lingered. Occasionally, I'd see a headline about another arrest or another whistleblower coming forward, and I'd feel a quiet sense of satisfaction. Ellie's files had done more damage than I ever could have imagined. As for her, she remained a ghost. Sometimes, I wondered if she'd managed to carve out a new life somewhere or if her past had finally caught up with her. But I no longer carried the weight of that curiosity. Ellie's story had ended for me the day I opened that envelope. My own story was simpler now. The cabin I'd moved to was small but cozy, nestled in the woods where I could breathe freely for the first time in years. The scars of betrayal hadn't faded completely, but they no longer defined me. I had rebuilt, piece by piece, not to return to the man I was but to become someone new, stronger, wiser, and unbroken. Betrayal teaches you things you never wanted to know. It strips away the illusions you build around love, trust, and safety, leaving you raw and exposed. But it also gives you a choice, to remain a victim or to rise from the wreckage. I chose the latter. The network was gone, its players scattered or imprisoned. The world knew their names, their crimes, and their lies. And Ellie? She gave me the weapon to take them down, even if it meant losing everything in the process. For that, I didn't hate her. But I didn't forgive her either. In the end, I learned this: no matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how sharp the pain, you can always rebuild. And sometimes, justice is the best kind of closure. As the sun set behind the trees outside my cabin, I sat on the porch, the cool air brushing against my face. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel since the day I kicked open that door. Peace.